Firewall and IDS. Firewall and IDS are for the securing our network. Firewall just block the traffic based on different criterias, and IDS is especially it's especially for the blocking or detecting the different kind of attacks. It is intrusion detection system, and it is designed to detect different kind of different attacks which attacker can do on our network on system also. Like attacker try to send viruses, worms, it try to send different malicious packets, so and try to do different type of attacks, scanning attack, denial of service attack, spoofing attack. So IDS is there to detect all these things. Now for the IDS, attacker use different techniques, because when you have there is a network, organization network, so when they configure the firewall, so mostly they configure IDS also with the firewall. Now the attacker have to evade the IDS also. So attacker uses different techniques to evade the IDS, to bypass the IDS. First it is insertion attack. Now insertion attack, here what attacker do, first an IDS blindly believes and accepts a packet that an end system rejects. Now it depends on these things. These insertion attacks depend on these different things or different factors. First, that is like IDS blindly believes and accepts a packet that an end system rejects. That means when the packet goes through the IDS, so IDS will accept the packet, and it will accept all those packets also which is rejected by the end system. That means the system which is intended to receive that packet, it will reject it. The packet is originally for the destination machine, and destination machine will reject it, but IDS will still accept those packets. Then an attacker exploit this condition and insert the data into the IDS. So what attacker do here, using this, it exploit this condition and insert data into the IDS. So this attack occurs when network intrusion detection system NIDS is less strict in processing the packet. Now here, when the IDS is not detecting or processing the whole packet, we can say. Remember, the packet is having a different headers which comes from the different layers. So it has a network layer, it has network header, it has a broad MAC address header, then it has error detection header, trailer, encapsulation. So when the packet encapsulated, so it can encapsulated with the different headers. So now if the packet is not processed by the IDS, it is not processed, that means strict processing. That means it is not checking the packet deeply. In that thing or in that problem, with that problem, if the IDS is not configured to strictly process the packet, then this insertion attack can be very successful. So attacker do what? Attacker obscure the extra traffic and IDS concludes traffic is harmless. So attacker will do what? It will create an extra traffic to bypass the IDS. Now extra traffic, that means for the IDS it will not detect as any harmful packet, but at the end of the system, those packets will go to the end system, and end system will reject the packets, some of the packets, and accept some of the packets, and then it will be a meaningful packet. So for IDS it is meaningless, but the end system it is meaningful packet. Hence the IDS gets more packet than the destination. So remember, in this insertion attack, the end system will get less packet than IDS. IDS will get the more packets. So attackers send one character packet to the target system via the IDS with varying TTL such that some packets reach to the IDS but not the target system. This will result in the IDS and the target system having two different character strings. That means if you see here in this image, the end system, like first the attacker data stream is like this. If you see here, it is like TXTCAAK. It is like this. Now in this insertion of the letter X, here it is inserting the letter X. Now when it goes to the monitor system, so it will the X accept the monitor system. The monitor system will accept the X, but this X will not reach to the end system. It will be rejected. This extra packet will be rejected by the end system. Now why? It can do by varying the TTL value also. That means attacker can use this technique to vary the TTL value, time to leave value. Now time to leave value, that means it indicates the packet how the packet can jump or go through how much routers, and IDS will also sit on the gateway or beside the gateway. So how much packet can reach to how much hops, it is decided by the TTL value. So attacker can vary the TTL value to send the packet only till the IDS, only till the network monitor, but the end system will receive the different packet. So this X packet, the packet X will only reach up to network monitor, and then it will expire. The TTL value will be expired and the packet will be dropped here. But after this the packet will be dropped, it will not go ahead, but it will still reach to the network monitor IDS, and IDS will accept it, and it will not be any meaning when the IDS combine those packets and with X, it will no meaning here. But the X is not reaching to the end system, and the other packets will reach to the end system with the different TTL value. So end system will combine the packets and it will mean as attack. So attacker can use to insert the packets and evade. So for evasion, what it do here, in this evasion technique, an end system accept a packet that an IDS rejects. Now there is another technique where the attacker, the end system accepts the packet which is IDS is rejecting. Now in this scenario, what happened? The end system accept the packet that IDS rejects. So using this technique, an attacker exploit the host computer, and attacker sends a portion of the request in packet that the IDS mistakenly rejects, allowing the removal of part of the stream from the IDS. For example, if the malicious sequence is sent bit by bit and one byte by byte, and one byte is rejected by the IDS cannot detect the attack. Here the IDS get fewer packets than the destination. In insertion attack, the IDS gets more packets than the end system, and in this attack, the end system gets more packet than the IDS. Now in this case, what attacker is sending here is this data, and here it is insertion of the letter A. Now here it is inserting the extra A here. Now what happened here, the monitoring system does not detect this A. It will be rejected by the IDS, but it will be accepted by the end system. So A will be rejected here, the packet will be dropped here, it will be rejected here, and it will reach to the end system. Now here, when attacker, the monitor IDS will combine all these packets where there is A is rejected, so it does not mean anything. But the A reaches the destination machine, the end machine, and when the end machine combines those packets, it means attack here, that means it has a meaning. But in the IDS, it does not have any meaning. So in this, rejected by the IDS, this A will be rejected by the IDS. It can use different techniques for that. It can use this different technique to reject by the IDS also. Then denial of service attack. Attacker can run denial of service attack on IDS also. Now many IDSs uses a centralized server for logging alerts. Now remember, IDS do what? It creates logs so that administrator can monitor the logs and scrutinize the logs later after the attack happens, so that it can check the detail about the attacks which is done. So there is a logging system, and say it is a centralized server where all the logs will be generated. Now if attacker knows the IP address of the centralized server, they can perform denial of service or other hack to slow down or crash the server. As a result, attacker's intrusion attempts will not be logged. So attacker will do what? If it is knows that the IP address of the centralized logging server, it will try to run the denial of service attack on that, and other kind of other denial of service attacks to slow or crash the server. Now when the logs are not generated, so the attack will be not noted, so attacks will be not alerted. So using this evasion technique, an attacker can cause the device to lock up, cause personnel to be unable to investigate all the alarms, cause more alarms, and then can be handled by the management system such as database, etc. That means it can generate more fake alarms also. Attacker can generate more fake alarms that the management or administrator can't be handled, or maybe the database might not be handled. Fills up the disk space, causing attack not be logged. And also it can fill up the hard disk space. Remember, the log is logging onto the disk. So whatever the logging is happening, it is happening on the server, and in the server it is stored into the hard disk. So when it generates lots of fake alarms, so it can fill up the hard disk space of the logged in server. And then what? There is no space remain for logging, and the server will stop logging. Consumes the device processing power and allow attacks to sneak by. Then it can also generate lots of fake alarms, so that it can consume the whole processing power of the logging system or IDS, so that it can sneak through some attacks. So these are the denial of service attack which can be done on IDS. Then it can use obfuscating. An IDS can be evaded by obfuscating or encoding the attack payload in a way that the target computer understands, but the IDS will not. This is, attacker can encode the attack pattern in Unicode to bypass the IDS filters, but be understood by an IIS web server. So attacker can use the Unicode technique to design the payload. Now these Unicodes can be understood by the web server, IIS web servers, but it is not understood by the IDS filters. Then polymorphic code is another means to circumvent signature-based IDS by creating unique attack patterns, so that the attack does not have a single detectable signature. Now remember, the IDS is detecting those attacks based on the signature. So by using the Unicode or by using the polymorphic code, attacker try to do what? Try to evade the signature detection. It try to generate a different unique patterns for the attack to be detected. Then attacker manipulate the path referenced in the signature to fool the HIDS, that is host intrusion detection system, to fool the intrusion detection system of host. Then attacks on encrypted protocols such as HTTPS are obfuscated if the attack is encrypted. Now if the attack is self-encrypted, that means it self-encrypted the attacker itself encrypted the attack, then also IDS is not able to detect it. And that is what obfuscating. So obfuscating the attack payload to different language like Unicode, polymorphic code, or doing the encryption, so that the IDS will not be able to detect the payload or attack payload. Then it can generate the false positive generation. The false positive generation, that means attacker with the knowledge of the target IDS craft the malicious packet just to generate the alerts, and these packets are sent to the IDS to generate a large number of false positive alerts. An attacker then use these false positive alert to hide real attack traffic. An attacker can bypass IDS unnoticed as it is difficult to differentiate the attack traffic from the large volume of false positive. So attacker can generate a large amount of false positive alerts or alarms, and within that it will send the real attack traffic. So if it is a large alarm, large fake alarm or large fake generated false positive alarms or logs, it is not easy to detect the real attack there also. So then another option the attacker has about this IDS evading, it is session splicing. Now this technique used to bypass the IDS where an attacker split the attack traffic into many packets such that no single packet triggers the IDS. So it will divide single packet into multiple small packets, and it is effective against IDSs that do not reconstruct packet before checking them against intrusion signatures. Now attack this IDS do what when it receives those packets. So just like the AND system, it will also reconstruct the packet. Now when it receives the packet into different fragments, so the different segments or different fragments, so it will do what, it will reconstruct the packet and then match the signature. But if the IDS is not matching it before, it is not reconstructing the packet before checking into the signature, then this session splashing attack can be successful. So if attacker are aware of delay in packet as reassembly at the IDS, they can add delay between packet transmission to bypass the reassembly. So attacker can do what? Attacker fragments the packet and send those fragments after delaying the time. Like the IDS will wait for some period of time, then it will do what? It will reassemble the packet. Now after the timeout, it will leave that packet what it is having. Like suppose the packet is divided into, one packet is divided into 5. Now 2 is gone to the IDS and IDS is waiting for the other 3, but the timeout for the packet reassemble is out. So when the timeout happens, then the IDS will leave those 2 packets. Now then attacker will send that remaining 3 packets. Now the 3 packets will not be reassembled because the first 2 packet is already dropped by the IDS. So the IDS will not be able to match the signature, but those 2 packets will reach the destination machine. It will reach the AND system, and AND system will reassemble the whole 5 packets, and then the attack will be done. Now many IDSs stop resembling if they do not receive packets within a certain time. So they will wait for some certain of time, then they will do timeout and they will leave all the remaining packets, and then IDL will stop working if the target host keeps session active for a time longer than the IDS resembling time. Then any attack attempts after a successful slicing attack will not be logged by the IDS, and also it will not be logged. The attack happens on the AND system, but it is not being logged by the IDS because it is not detected. So Unicode evasion technique is simple, where Unicode is Unicode used by the attacker to bypass the IDS. Now Unicode is a character coding system to support the worldwide interchange, processing and display of the written text. For example, this slash can be represented by the Unicode %U2215. E can be represented by %U00E9, that is UTF-16, and this symbol can be represented by @C2 %C2 %A9, or this symbol can be represented by this is for the UTF-8. So this is a Unicode. So instead of mentioning the slash, the attacker will send this value, this Unicode value. So attacker can convert attack string to Unicode characters to avoid the pattern and signature matching at the IDS. And attackers can Unicode URLs in HTTP request using Unicode characters to bypass the HTTP based attack detection at the IDS. So IDS will not detect this Unicode if the attacker designed the URL under this Unicodes. but the web server will easily understand the Unicodes. And attacker will do again, it can do also fragmentation attack. So fragmentation can be used as an attack vector when fragmentation timeouts vary between IDS and host. So if fragment resembling timeout is 10 seconds at the IDS and 20 seconds at the target system, so attacker will send the second fragment after 15 seconds if sending the first fragment. So in this scenario, the IDS will drop the fragment as the second fragment is received after its resembling time, but the target system will resemble the fragments. And attacker will keep sending the fragments with 15-second delay until all the attack's payload is resembled at the target system. So what attacker is doing? Attacker is dividing the single packet into multiple fragments. And what fragmentation attack do? It do send the fragments after a timeout. So first it will send the first fragment packet, and then what? It will wait for the timeout on the IDS system. For example, IDS system timeouts on 10 seconds and the end system will timeout on 20 seconds. So it will send after 50, where IDS will be timeout and IDS will leave the packets which is having. So suppose first packet it is having, so it will wait for 10 seconds and then leave that first packet. But the end system will still wait, so it will reach to the end system. The second packet will also reach to the end system. Now in this case, the IDS will receive nothing, but the whole packet will be received by the end system, and IDS will not be able to log any kind of attack. This is the fragmentation attack. Now, so what fragmentation done here? As we see here, this IDS is having a timeout of 10 seconds and the victim machine is having the timeout of 20 seconds. So first attacker sends the first fragment. All with this IDS and victim both will receive the first packet. Then the second packet, it will wait for 15 seconds. Now here the IDS will drop that first packet after waiting the 10 seconds. Now what? The victim machine is still waiting for the other packet because the timeout for the victim machine is 20. So it is still waiting, the first fragment is still there. Then after waiting 15 seconds, the second fragment will be sent by the attacker. Now the victim, this IDS will receive the second fragment, and now this IDS will think that the other fragments are coming, and it will still wait. It will again wait for 10 seconds. But this second fragment is reached to the victim machine, and the packet is combined. And then what? The fragment is combined to make a packet, and the attack will be done. And this second fragment on the network, this IDS, it will wait for 10 seconds, then it will drop this one also. So attacker will do what? After every 15 seconds, it will send the different fragments. So every fragment it will send after 15 seconds, so that it will be dropped by the NIDS, this intrusion detected, this IDS, NIDS, and it is received by the victim machine. And by this, it will do what? It will evade the IDS, it will fool the IDS, and nothing will be logged here in IDS, and the attack is done on the victim machine. A similar fragmentation attack works when the IDS timeouts exceed the victims. Now in this case, the IDS time is exceeded, that means IDS time is 15 seconds and the victim machine's time is 10 seconds. Then again attacker can do what? Attacker can do the fragmentation attack. It can do that by doing what? Victims and IDS receive fragment 2 and 4 out of 4 fragments, but carry a false payload. Now what it do here? It will send, like suppose we have 4 packets, so the 4 segments or 4 fragments. So victim and IDS, first it will send, the attacker sends the first 2 packets of 2 and 4. Now under this 2 and 4 packet, it does not have any data. It is false carry. It has a false payload. There is no important payload is there. There is no real packet here. Now what? Victim drops these two fragments after 30 seconds because victim's timeout is less than IDS. So after 30 seconds, the victim will drop the packet, these two packets with the false payload, and does not send ICMP since fragment 1 never received. So because the fragment 1 is never received, it will not send the ICMP error. Then victims and IDS receive fragment 1 and fragment 3. Now in this fragment 1 and fragment 3, this is the real data, this is the real attack payload out of those 4 fragments. Now IDS resemble 4 received fragments, but computed net checksum is invalid, so packet is dropped. Now in this case, when the IDS combine all those 4 packets, the meaning for those 4 packets will be false, because in those 4 packets there is 4 packets are false and 4 packets are real. But first 4 packets are dropped by the end system. Now when the victim receives these 1 and 3 fragment, then what it will be, when the victim machine combines those packets, then it will become the attack. But remember, victim machine will not combine until those 2 and 4 will come. So first 2 and 4 will be dropped. Then what? Victim and IDS receive the real fragment of 2 and 4. Now again the attacker will send the real 2 and 4. Now in this case, the IDS is already combined those 4 packets and come up with the no result, but now it is receiving again 2 and 4. Now this one is real, but again IDS will wait for the other 2 packets, 1 and 3. But at the end system, 1 and 3 is already reached, and then attacker sending is 2 and 4. Now victim resemble 4 received fragments and is attacked, and IDS timeout fragment 2 and 4 and drops. So this is how it works. Now in this case, what is here, this IDS timeout is 60 seconds and victim's timeout is 30 seconds, which is less than the IDS. Now here what the attacker is doing, first it is sending the false packets. 2 and 4 is a false packet which does not contain any payload. It is a false payload. Now both will receive these 2 packets out of 4. Total number of packets are 4, but it is sending number 2 and 4 first. Now these 2 and 4 will remain on this IDS and victim, but after 30 seconds the victim will drop those 4 packets, 2 and 4 packet, because the other packets have not come. But IDS is still waiting for the other packets like 1 and 3. Now what? Attacker will send the real 1 and 3 packet, the 1 and 3 fragment. Now when it reaches the IDS will combine it with the previous 2 and 4, and the new packet, it resembles the packet, but it does not come up with the anything. It will see that there is no signature matching because the 2 and 4 is a false packet. But this 1 and 3 reaches the victim machine. Now the IDS will drop all these 4 packets, but victim machine will get the fragment 1 and 3, and now it is waiting for the fragment 2 and 4, the real one. Now the attacker will do what? It will again send 2 and 4. Now this time it will send real one. Now real one will reach to the IDS, it will receive this 2 and 4, and also the victim will receive. Now in this case, the IDS will now wait for the 1 and 3 again, because it is received 2 and 4, and now 1 and 3 is not there, so it is waiting for 1 and 3. But this 1 and 3 is already reached to the victim machine, and now 2 and 4 is also reached, the real one. Now when these victim machine combine these packets, then the attack will be done, and this IDS will wait for 60 seconds for this other 2 packets 1 and 3, and then it will drop these 2 and 4 also. So IDS will not notice any kind of attack, but the victim will receive the attack, the whole packet of attack. Then attacker can do also overlapping fragments. Now overlapping fragments, that means what it do here. First, an IDS evasion technique is a craft a series of packet with TCP sequence number configured to overlap. So it will create a different package, like it will segment the multiple packets, single into multiple packet, and it will overlap the packet which can overlap the TCP sequence number. Now for example, what it do, the first packet will include 80 bytes of payload, but the second packet sequence number will be 76 byte after the start of the first packet. When the target computer resembles the TCP stream, it must decide how to handle the 4 overlapping bytes. Some OS will take the original fragments with the given offset. Example, Windows like Windows 2000 XP or 2003, and some operating system will take the subsequent fragments with the given offset. Example, iOS, Cisco operating system, Cisco inter-network operating system, like Cisco firewalls or Cisco router switches. Now that means what? Attacker do what? Attacker create these 3 fragments like 1, 2, 3. Now first it will send 1, 2, 3, or it is received by the Windows or Cisco iOS also. Now what? Then attacker send 4, 2, 3 and 4. Now 2, 3 and 4, that means this 2 and 3 is not, it is not a real packet, it is a false payload packet, but it is overlapping, because remember 2 and 3 is already sent. So it is sending 2 and 3 again with the original one. Now in this case, what happened here? What Windows machine do here? Windows machine take the original fragment with the given offset. The original fragment, that means the one which is coming before, like the one which comes first, like 1, 2, 3, which is coming before first time, and then it will accept the fourth one. That means the second time when the attacker sends this 2 and 3, it will not be accepted by the Windows machines. So Windows machine will still use the old one, the first one which come, and then it will craft the packet. Now if it is a Cisco iOS, then it will do what? In Cisco iOS will do what? It will take the subsequent fragment with the given offset. That means it will use the second time which these 2, 3 is coming. Now this 2, 3 is coming from the second time, so it will accept these 2, 3. It will reject the first 2, 3 which it receives, and then it will combine the packet. Now in this case, that means what attacker can do? Attacker can use this overlap technique to bypass the IDS. So when it's sending the packet to Windows machine, when it wanted to do the attack on Windows system, so what it will do? It will do send the first 1, 2, 3 packet real, and then when it send the overlapping packet, so it will send 2 and 3 false packets. Now what happened in IDS? IDS will not understand what is happening, because when it combines these false packets, it will receive nothing. But the Windows machine will receive, and it will combine these 4 packets which is original, and it will ignore these false packets which is coming after the first 2, just 1, 2, 3. Now if it is wanted to, if attacker wanted to run this, wanted to attack on Cisco iOS, then it will first send the fake packets. First 2, 3 will be the fake. The second time when it says send the 2, 3, then it will be the real one. Again IDS will not understand, but the victim machine will accept this 1, 2, 3, 4, and it will receive the second time which is sent 1, 2, which is 2, 3 packets comes. So this is what overlapping attack. And then it can do the time to leave attack. Time to leave, where it changes the time to leave value to just reach the packet till the IDS. That means this attack requires the attacker to have a prior knowledge of the topology of the victim network. This information can be obtained using tools such as traceroute, which gives information on the number of routers between the attacker and the victim. So attacker knows that how many routers are there in between. So attacker can do what? It can craft the packet with the time to leave value. So first attacker will do what? Attacker breaks the malicious traffic into 3 segments. And then what? Attacker sends the first fragment with the high TTL, false fragment 2 with the low TTL. So high fragment TTL, the high TTL will reach the destination and low TTL will not reach. So IDS receive both fragments, victims receive first fragment only. So the end system will receive the both one, but the IDS will only receive the first fragment only. Yeah, victim will receive only first and IDS will receive both one. This is an insertion attack where the IDS is getting more packets than the end system. Now attacker sends fragment 3 with the high TTL again. Then IDS resemble 3 fragments into meaningless packet and drops, and victim receives real fragment 2 and suffers attack while no log entry created. So how it works? So first, suppose attacker knows about the routing system, like knows about the network design first. We can see that by the trace route and all that. So how many routers it is giving and it is reaching. So what attacker do? Attacker first send the packet with the TTL value which ends on the victim. It will send the high TTL value. So it will reach till the victim machine. The fragment 1 will reach both IDS and the victim system both. Now the second packet, what it is saying, second fragment it is sending, it is the false payload, and it will reduce the TTL value to reach up to only the IDS. So this fragment 2 will only reach up to IDS. Now IDS is getting more packets than victim. This fragment 2, the false payload, will not reach to the victim machine. It will be dropped by the router because the time to leave value is 0. Now IDS is having one fragment 1 and 2. Now the attacker will send the fragment 3, the real one, and it will send by high TTL value that it can reach to the victim. Now it will reach to the IDS and also reach to the victim. Now IDS, when the IDS sees 1, 2, 3 is there, now when it combines the packet, it will say it is meaningless and it will drop it. But the number 3 fragment will reach to the victim, and now victim is waiting for the second one to resemble the packet. Now the packet is resemble here on IDS and it is dropped here. Now attacker is sending the real one, the real fragment 2. It reaches the IDS and also reaches the victim. Now it is because the TTL value is high. So now fragment 2 reaches the IDS and reaches the victim. Victim combines the packet because it is now done. 1, 2, 3 fragment is there. It combines the packet, resembles the packet, and the attack will be done here. And it is attacked. But the IDS is getting only fragment 2 because the previous packet it has dropped. So now the IDS is waiting for the other 2 packets, 1 and 3, which will never come because it has already gone. And the IDS will never notice that those packets have gone. And by using this time to leave attack, the attacker can do the insertion attack, where the IDS is getting more packets than the end victim. Then it can do the reset attack also. Invalid reset attack. Now remember, the reset means what? It is to reset the connection. When the TCP connection establishes and when the job is done, then the victim, the sender machine sends a reset packet, reset flag. The sender machine sends the fin flag, and the receiving machine sends the reset flag. Reset flag is to reset the connection. So TCP uses this 16-bit checksum field for error checking of the header and data, and reset flag in the TCP header is used to close a TCP connection. Now invalid reset attack, attackers send reset packet to the IDS with an invalid checksum. Now invalid checksum, the packet is errorless. Now the packet is error, but it is reset packet. So what the IDS will do? IDS stop processing the packet thinking that the TCP connection session has ended, but the target system will receive the packet with the error checksum. So what the target system do? Target system checks the reset packet checksum and drops it. So it is dropped on the data link layer, or it is dropped because it is corrupted. So the end system sees the reset packet, but it is because the error is there, it is dropped the packet and the session will never be reset. But the IDS receives the packet, it says that okay, it is a reset packet, so it resets the connection and it feels like the connection is now reset. So whatever the packet will come now, it will be for the next session. So the attack enables attacker to communicate with the target system while the IDS thinks that the communication has ended. So attacker can still send the packet with the existing session to the end system, but for IDS feels like this is the new packets, and there is no meaning for that new packets when it combines with these, and it will say like there is no signature matching. Same as reset flag, TCP has urgency flag also. Now this urgency flag is in the TCP header is used to mark the data that require urgent processing at the receiving end. So if suppose one communication session is going on and some data is already going on, in between if the sending side wants to send some other important data, so it sends the urgent flag first, and then urgent flag says that stop the receiving end, it says that stop processing current data and wait for the next data to come and process that data first. So in this case, if the urgent flag is set, the TCP protocol set the urgent pointer field to a 16-bit offset value that point the last byte of urgent data in the segment, and many IDSs do not consider the urgent pointer and process all the packets in the traffic, whereas the target system process only the urgent data. So this result in the IDS and the target system having different set of packets, so which can be exploited by attacker to bypass the attack traffic. So for example, first 1 byte data next to urgent data will be lost when urgent data and normal data are combined. So packet 1 is ABC and packet 2 is DEF and with the urgency pointer, and packet 3 is GHI. The end result will be ABCDEF HI. So this example illustrates how the urgency flag works in conjunction with the urgency pointer. So according to the RFC 1122, the urgency pointer causes 1 byte of data next to the urgency data to be lost when urgent data is combined with normal data, and that is why we see that G is missing. In the end result, the G is missing there. Then attacker can use the polymorphic shellcode also. So most IDS contains the signature for commonly used strings within shellcode. So this is easily bypassed by using the encoded shellcode containing a stub that decodes the shellcode that follows. So this means that shellcode can be completely different each time it is sent, and polymorphic shellcode allows attacker to hide their shellcode by encrypting it in a simplistic form, and it is difficult for IDS to identify this data as shellcode. This method also hides the commonly used string within shellcode, making shellcode string signature useless. So it do what? It uses the polymorphic shellcode to hide its own shellcode by using the encryption of that. Then just like the polymorphic shellcode, it can use ASCII shellcode also. This ASCII shellcode includes characters which are present only in ASCII standard. Then attacker can use ASCII shellcode to bypass the IDS signature, as the pattern matching does not work effectively with the ASCII values. So scope of ASCII shellcode is limited, as all assembly instruction cannot be converted to ASCII values directly. Now this attack can be restrictive, like it is limited, because everything is all the assembly instruction cannot be converted into shellcode, ASCII shellcode, but it can be successful for the normal thing. This limitation can be overcome by using other sets of instruction for converting to ASCII values properly. So this is an example here The following is an ASCII shellcode example. Now this is the example for the shellcode, and the command is here bin sh. When executed the shellcode above, this is, so executes a /bin/sh, that is shell, and bin and sh are contained in the last few bytes of the shellcode. So it is having this shellcode here, which is no meaning, and at the end of those it is adding the real value, that is bin/sh. Then attacker can use the application layer attack. Application accessing media, files, audio, video and images, compress them to smaller size for maximum data transfer rate. IDS cannot verify the signature of compressed file format. So this enables an attacker to exploit the vulnerabilities in compressed data. An IDS can recognize particular condition favorable for attack, but other alternative forms of attack are also possible. For example, various integer values can be used to exploit integer overflow vulnerabilities. This makes the detection of attack traffic extremely difficult at the IDS. So application layer, like attacker can do what? It can compress those data so that it will be changed and the signature will not be matched. So IDS cannot verify the signature of compressed file. Then attacker can use the desynchronization. In that desynchronization, it has pre-connection sync. First, pre-connection sync. Now, pre-connection sync means if a sync packet is received after the TCP control block is opened, the IDS reset the appropriate sequence number to match that of the newly received sync packet. Then attacker sends fake sync packet with the completely invalid sequence number to desynchronize the IDS. So this stops IDS from monitoring all legitimate and attack traffic. So attacker can do what? It can desynchronize the IDS by sending the sequence number, invalid sequence number. Because the IDS do what? When a sync packet is received after the TCP control block, so the IDS reset the appropriate sequence number to match that of the newly received sync packet. So whatever the newly sync it received, it will reset the counter for the sequence number to match with the sync. Now what attacker attacker can do? It can send the fake sync packet completely invalid sequence number. Now invalid sequence number it will send to desynchronize the IDS for the connection, and it will remain the victim, the AND machine will still be connected with the real, and the IDS will be desynchronized. Then in the desynchronization, post connection sync. In this method, for this technique, the attack to desynchronize the IDS from the actual sequence number that the kernel is honoring. So send a post connection sync packet in the data stream which will have divergent sequence number, but otherwise meet all of the necessary criteria to be accepted by the target host. So however, the target host will ignore this sync packet as it references an already established connection. So the sync packet will be rejected by the AND host because it is already synchronized, it is already connection is established. Now this intent of this attack is to get the IDS to resynchronize its notion of the sequence number to the new sync packet, and it will then ignore any data that is a legitimate part of the original stream, because it will be waiting a different sequence number. So once succeeded in resynchronizing the IDS with sync packet, with the sync packet, send and reset packet with the new sequence number and close down its notion of the connection. So first it will resynchronize the IDS, and then it will close the connection by sending the reset packet. There are some other types of evasions also. First, encryption. When the attacker has already established an encrypted session with the victim, it results in the most effective evasion attack. because encryption is not the IDS will not able to understand, because all the packets will be encrypted from attacker to the end system. So attacker, the victim will not be able, the IDS will not be able to detect any packet. Then the other type of evasion is flooding. The attacker sends lots of unnecessary traffic to produce noise, and if IDS does not analyze the noise traffic well, then the true attack traffic may go undetected. So it will generate lots of false positive or flood with the different packets, unnecessary traffic, and within those unnecessary traffic, it will try to send the real traffic or real data. And if the IDS is not able to detect, analyze all these packets, then it can go undetected. Next is evading firewalls. A firewall identification first. First is port scanning. Identification of firewall. You can do that by using the port scanning. Now port scanning is used to identify open ports and service running on these ports. So open ports can be further probed to identify the version of services, which helps in finding vulnerabilities in these services. Now some firewalls will uniquely identify themselves in response to simple port scans. For example, Checkpoint's firewall 1 listen on TCP port 256, 257, 258 and 259. NetGuard Guardian Pro firewall listen on TCP port 1500 and UDP 1501. So if suppose we scan these port scans and we see these unique ports used by these different type of firewalls, so the attacker can easily guess that what type of firewall is there. So to identify the firewall, attacker can use the port scanning. Now remember, these are the default port which these firewalls use. Now if the administrators has changed the default port and it has changed the default setting, then it will be not able to detect. The attacker will not be able to detect or identify the firewall. And that is why we say that we should change the default configuration. Now if it is not changed, then at these firewalls listen on some default ports. So attacker knows what are those default ports. So if the attacker sees these port numbers and the machine is listening on this port, that means there is a firewall with this type of firewall is there. So this is what for firewall identification. Next is firewalking. Attacker can do the firewalking also for identifying the firewall, a technique that uses TTL values to determine gateway, ACL filters and map networks by analyzing IP packet response. So attackers send a TCP or UDP packet to the targeted firewall with the TTL set to one hop greater than that of the firewall. If the packet takes it through the gateway, it is forwarded to the next hop where the TTL equals 1 and elicit an ICMP TTL exceeded in transit to be returned as the original packet is discarded. This method helps locate a firewall addiction, probing, permits fingerprints and identification of vulnerabilities. Now this one, firewalking, is to just get the IP address of the firewall or exact location of the firewall, where the firewall is located and which IP is exact IP of the firewall. And then we can go for the port scanning of that IP to identify or try to identify the IP, the type of the firewall. This we can do by the TTL value. We can use the traceroute command to do this. We can use the traceroute command to do this to get the firewall location. For example, first suppose I want to ping some car network. Now I'm not getting a reply because there is a firewall which is blocking me. So I try to ping this, it is not allowing me, it is saying timeout. That means there is a firewall which is stopping me. So what I can do here, I can use traceroute. I can use traceroute. In Windows it is called traceroute, to find the exact location where my packets are dropping. Now it is trying to find out the path. It is trying to find out how many routers are there in between. So firewall will also take it as the firewall will also show here. It is also like a gateway. So it is also a hop. Now we have to see where it is going to end and where our packet is stopping. Now the attacker can do what? It can do it manually also. It can use the ping command to do this manually by increasing the time to leave value. In the ping command, there is an option for increasing mentioning the time to leave value. So it can do that manually also by increasing one by one time to leave value, or we can use the trace route, which is automatically increase the time to leave value one by one. Now the packet is reached till the 10th hop. Now I think it is now going to be dropped. Okay, 11th it is passed, and now it is looking like it is dropping from here. Okay, timeout. Now one timeout is not enough, because sometimes it can happen because of some problem, so we can ignore one timeout. Now second is also timeout. Okay, we can ignore it. Third is also gone, and fourth is also going to timeout. Now that means what? Here it is continuously timeout. That means there is a firewall here. After this IP, it is blocking us. Now this IP is what? It is 116.50.122.110, and what is the IP of that host? It is 116.50.79.208. It is actually near to that IP. That means it may be within the network. This IP is within the network. So maybe this is the firewall, or maybe this is the router, and after the router we have a firewall. Now maybe this IP is a firewall, or maybe after this router, this IP, there is a firewall we have. Now what we can do here, in Windows machine there is no option there, but in Linux machine we have an option. I will close here first, and I will go to the Kali machine now. Now I'm in a Linux machine. I'm in a Kali machine. I'm trying to ping it again. It is resolving the IP address, but it is not getting the reply because there is a firewall. What I will do here, I will use a trace route command here. Now under Linux machine it is a trace route, but in Windows machine it is called traceat. So here it named as a trace route. Now let's see what happens here. And very quickly it reaches up to 11 hops, and now it is dropping all the packets. So here also we can see the same IP is showing there, and after that all the packets are dropping. This is the same IP which is blocking it, but it is the server is not blocked. We can access the server through browser. If I go to the browser, I will open Firefox. We can still access the site. If I try to access the site, now I can access the site. Why? Because the site is available. Now the server is connected, the server is accessible, but only through the protocol HTTPS. It is not allowing, the firewall is not allowing the ping request. It is not allowing the protocol echo. When we do the ping, it uses the protocol this echo protocol packet to be sent by the ICMP, but it is accepting these other protocols. It is accepting the HTTPS protocol, HTTP, so the connection can be established. Now here in Linux, under the traceroute command, we have one option here. Now this traceroute do what? It actually sends the ping request. It creates the ping packet, it sends the echo packet with the different TTL values to detect that hops. Now under this traceroute of Linux, we have one option here to do the request of TCP. So instead of sending the packet of echo request, instead of sending the ping request, with this option T, it will send the request for packet, the TCP packet, and by default it is going to send the packet for default port number 80, that is HTTP. So instead of sending the echo request, the traceroute will do send the probe for port number 80, and on the TCP it will send the sync request. Now this is allowed by the firewall, that is why we can see the site here. That site is allowed, the port 80 is allowed, that is why we can see the site. So it will go through the firewall. Now it will pass the firewall because the 80 is allowed. Now first I will do it without that -T option, and I can see again that 11th hop it is dropping. Now I will do it with the T option. That means I am going to send the packet of TCP port 80. Now what I see here, after the 11th hop, it passes the second hop, which is the 12th hop, and after that it reaches the destination machine. Now it is reached the destination machine, we can see the IP, we can verify the IP of the destination machine, and this is the IP of that destination machine. It reaches the destination machine. Why? Because it is sending the TCP packet, TCP sync packet. Now we can check the hops here. This is the hop which is dropping the ping packet. After this hop it was dropped, and we can verify here. This is the 11th hop with this IP 116.50.122.110, and this is the same IP we see here at the 11th hop 116.50.122.110. So this is the router of that organization, and after the router there is one more hop it is showing here, and this hop is actually a firewall. So this firewall is blocking all the ping requests, but it is allowing that TCP sync request for the port number 80. So we can see that this is the IP, or we have this as a firewall, and also there is one more star it is showing. So maybe there is IDS is also there. So maybe this is the firewall, or certainly, and this is what the IDS. Now we know the IDS, the firewall IP, then we can use the other identification method. We can scan the port, we can do the port scanning on this IP and try to see what ports are running on that, and then we can see, or we can guess what is the type of firewall. So that is a technique actually called firewalking, to just identify the exact location of the firewall, and then we can find out the fingerprint, or we can find out the ports available or open on that firewall IP, or also we can do this banner grabbing. To identify the firewall, attacker can do the banner grabbing also. Now banners are service announcements provided by services in response to connection request, and often carry vendor version information. So these banners are actually very simple. It is the service announcements that is provided by the services in response. So whoever wants to connect the services, it will receive by the banner. It says that this is the server, and do these things. So with those banner, it can show the vendor service information, version information also. So banner grabbing is a simple method of fingerprinting that helps in detecting the vendor of a firewall and the firmware version. The three main services which send out banners are FTP, Telnet, and web servers. So for example of SMTP banner grabbing is Telnet, mail, and the IP or name .25. So it will show you the banner of that service. If suppose the mail services are there, so we can send the request for the service, and it will give me the reply. In the reply it will give me the banner of that service. In the banner it can show me the information about the version and the vendor. Also it will show the version information. So attacker can do the banner grabbing on that IP which it finds by the firewalk, and then try to find out the uh, hardware information or the version information also. Now after identifying the firewall, then attacker will try to evade it. Now for evading the firewall, attacker can do what? It can use the first option is IP address spoofing. IP address spoofing is a hijacking technique in which an attacker masquerades as a trusted host to conceal his identity, spoof a website, hijack browser, or gain unauthorized access to a network. Attacker modifies the addressing information in the IP packet header and the source address bit fields in order to bypass the firewall. For example, let's consider these three hosts here like A, B and C. Now these are the trusted machines here. These host C, these are trusted machines of B. That means in the firewall is a configuration there which says that this host B is trusted this host C. So any of these IP from the host C can communicate with host B. Now host A masquerade to be as host C by modifying the IP address of the malicious packet that he intend to send to the host B. Now when the packet are received by host B, thinks that they are from host C but are actually from host A. Now in this case we can consider this host B and C is in the internal network, and firewall says that only this host C machine can connect host B. Now attacker is sitting outside. What it will do here, it will send the malicious packet and spoof the source address of any of these host C trusted machine. Now when it processes the firewall thinks that okay, the packet is coming from this host C which is allowed, and it is going to be accepted by the host B also. This is what it is called IP address spoofing. So attacker is spoofing the IP address of the trusted host. Then source routing. Source routing allows the sender of a packet to partially or completely specify the route the packet takes through the network. As the packet travels through the nodes in the network, each router examines the destination IP address and chooses the next hop to direct the packet to the destination. In source routing, the sender makes some or all of these decisions on the router. Now the figure shows here the source routing where the originator detects actual route of traffic. Like for example, this sender A, that is attacker, wants to send the data to sender F, that is the destination. But in between we have a firewall here. Now when you send the direct packet, it is not going to reach the destination. So attacker will do what? It will change the other route. Now here it is not possible every time, because remember, because the next hop decision will be taken by the router itself. Now when you send a packet to any destination, your packet will go first to your own router, and then your router will decide that the route, what will be the next router and where to send the packet next, what will be the next hop, and that decision will be taken by the router itself. So if the attacker is able to craft the packet with the prefixed destination IP or destination route, then it can do this source routing attack. But one more thing, if the firewall is there for the first route, so maybe the other route will also have the firewall. So whether the attacker is taking the other route, but still the firewall will be there. So mostly the firewall sits on the place where the entry of the all packets come. Like all the packets will enter into the destination or local system. So firewall always sit on that position where it can filter all the received packets. So it is not possible every time to do the source routing, because whenever you choose any other path, still it can meet the firewall. But if it is possible, then we can do that. The attacker can also do the source routing. Then again it can do the tiny fragments. Just like for evading the IDS, for evading the firewall also it can create tiny fragments of packets. So attacker creates the tiny fragments of outgoing packet, forcing some of the TCP packets header information into the next fragment. Now TCP header information is required to process or filter the packet. So what it will craft, attacker can craft a tiny fragment packets. So it will divide the TCP header information from one packet to other packet. Now the IDS filter rules that specify the patterns will not match with the fragmented packet due to broken header information, and the attack will succeed if the filtering router examines only the first fragment and allow all the other fragments to pass through. So this attack is used to avoid user defined filtering rules and works when the firewall checks only for the TCP header information. So because the headers are divided into multiple fragments, it is not able to detect it by the IDS and also the firewall. It will only detect the first part and then forward the rest of the part. This is the header sample of the fragment. Then bypass blocked sites using IP address in place of URL. Now this method involves typing the IP address directly in browser address bar in place of typing the blocked website's domain name. For example, to access the Orkut, type its IP address instead of the typing domain name. So for example, like for accessing the Facebook, instead of typing the URL into the browser, it can type the IP address. It will also work. Now use the services such as host to IP to find the IP address of the blocked website. Now if the IP address is blocked, then the site is blocked, then we can use the IP address. This method fails if the blocking software tracks the IP address sent to the browser server. Now it is not a successful technique, but somehow if it is the firewall is not properly configured, and if the software is tracking the IP address sent to the web browser, then it can be detected. So whatever the blocking software is there, it is tracking the IP address sent to the web browser. So if the blocking software of the firewall, mostly this is done by the application level firewall, which works on the application layer to block the URLs. So if the URL is only blocked and the IP address is not blocked, like IP address is not having a filter for that, then it can bypass the IP address and it can go through the firewall. So instead of URL, attacker can use the IP address also. For example, first to get the IP, we can ping it to get the IP. If I ping that machine or that site, I can get the IP address, and now I know what is the IP address here. Now by using this IP address, I can directly type the IP address instead of the URL in browser. I will go to browser and type the IP address instead of URL, and you can see we can still go to the site. Now attacker can do one more thing. It can do obfuscate also this IP address. It can do code this IP address into binary. It will also work same. For example, we can use the simple calculator here. What I will do here, input is invalid here. First I will use this IP and remove the dots from this IP, and then I will copy the whole number and then I will put it into calculator. I will go to first here, I will go to programming, and first decimal, I will paste that value. I think it is wrong. okay, no, it is right what 157.240.198.35. Okay, so this is the IP address. I will convert it into binary. Now this is the binary number for it, and then what, I will copy this binary number. Now instead of URL, instead of IP address, I will give the binary number here. And I will remove these spaces. Okay, now I will try this, but these new browsers, it has some problems. Now it won't work here because these new browsers do what? Whatever you do type here, they do try to do what? Search it as a, try to search on Google. Okay, I will try one more time. Okay, so these new browsers do what? It try to do search it directly, but if it is not there, then it will try to go to the binary number also. But instead of the IP address, it can go on to search this. Oh, sorry, we can do. I think I have done wrong. So that binary one was not working because of these new browsers. They always go for search. But the IP address we can do. We can use IP address. But remember, if the browser, if the firewall is filtering the IP address also, then it will not work. This will not work. Then we can do bypass these block sites using the anonymous website surfing sites. That means the anonymizers and proxies. Many websites around the net enable surfing that internet anomaly. Some websites provide option to encrypt the URLs of the websites, and these proxy websites will hide the actual IP address and will show another IP address which could prevent the website from being blocked, thus allowing access to them. So these are the proxy servers can help you to unblock blocked websites. So if suppose the websites are not working in your region, then you can use these anonymizer sites which give you online anonymizing. That means you can search those sites, you can access those sites by using these anonymizer. It will hide your IP address, it will do encrypt the connection also, so that whatever the firewall is there which is blocking those sites, it will not able to detect what the data is going on, and your data will go undetected to the site, and then it will send it will give you the result also. So we have these sites which we can use to do that, and it will hide our IPs. So this is the example of that anonymizer site. One of this is kproxy.com, where you can go and browse whatever the site you want to access. Like if your site is not working in your region, then you can browse it here. For example, I will go for browser Google. Okay, first I will go for the normal Google. This is without anonymizing, and here I will check what's my IP. I want to see what is my IP address. So this is my IP address. So if I go to any site, if I access any website, anything, whatever I do, this is the IP which is going to be logged. That means this is the IP which is going to be recorded. This is my public IP. Now what I will do, I will go to anonymizing site. I will go to Google here. And now what? I will try to find out what's my IP. Now this is what I am doing it from anonymizer. Okay, we'll try again. Now it is not working here. What is it saying? Our system has dedicated unusual traffic from your computer. Okay, it is detecting some kind of unusual traffic, but it is showing what IP address here is this, and that is not my IP address. So actually it is doing what? Anonymizing my IP, and it is detecting something else. This is not my IP, which is my actual IP. So this is what it do, and this is just an online option, but we can download the extensions of these anonymizers, we can download the sites, we can download the tools for these different anonymizers, and we can use it to anonymize ourselves and to bypass those firewalls which is using the URL blocking technique, or we can say the application level firewalls.